Welcome back to my N-Scale Model Railroad. Since the last video, I've made a lot of progress, including ballasting some of the track. I redid my bridge, and I've been working on 3D printing some more buildings. So let me show you everything that I've done. I'll start off here. You can see that I've built this wooden frame that goes up over the top of the table, and this is to hold a few can lights that I've clamped up there. I wanted the layout to be better lit, and this was a good solution for now, which is still part of the table and doesn't, it's not hanging from the ceiling or anything. Another new addition is I purchased a Bambu Labs A1 Mini 3D printer. So this is going to allow me to 3D print much better models for my layout, including buildings and bridges and structures and stuff. Over here on the left, you can see my old Monoprice Maker Select 3D printer, which I got in 2017, I think, so it's almost 10 years old. It's been a good printer, but it's definitely kind of a hassle to level the bed constantly and putting down tape every time so that the prints will stick to it. You can also see that I added a server power supply there, which maybe isn't the best solution to power it. So this new Bambu Labs A1 Mini is going to be a great addition. But so far I've used this printer a lot to build buildings, and they're coming out really great. So let me show you some of those. The first new model that I designed and 3D printed is the highway overpass here. You can see I redesigned it to have 3 pillars instead of 2. Originally I wanted 2 pillars to not obstruct the view of the trains, but the more I looked at real highway overpass support columns, I thought that the 3-pillar design, where the end just curves as part of the pillar, looked really nice. So here at an eye level view of the support columns, you can see that I even added the little rubber things that the real ones sit on. I guess real bridges, they sit on these so that when they expand and contract with the temperature, they can kind of slide along those. I think that's correct. I also increased the width here of the I-beam. So let me pull up a piece from the original overpass. I've since broken it down, but you can see that the I-beam section on the original one was a little bit shorter. I did not think it looked as realistic. So I like the way that this one came out much better. Another thing that I added on each end of the I-beams is I also added those little support things. This was a separate 3D printed piece, but it definitely looks like that the I-beams are resting on something and aren't just sitting on the ground. Same thing on the other side. And then for the fences, these are, I think, Woodland Scenics, just chain link fences, which they're in three piece sections, and I just glued them in. You can kind of see from this angle that when I designed the overpass, I added a little kind of dip there on the side of the wall there where the fences can be glued in. I just glued them in with super glue. So another 3D print that I've been working on is, of course, the AC tower, which is part of the Marion Union Station scene. So this is the 3rd iteration of the AC tower. Here you can see the other 2 iterations of the AC tower. The first one there on the left was mostly one piece for like the main building part. The windows and the doors were just little extrusions on the surface. So when I painted it, it did not turn out very well. The second one was 3D printed with my new 3D printer, and you can see that I added in the siding pieces. So they're very small. They only stick out, I think, 0.5 millimeter from the building wall. Also, all the windows and doors on the second model there are separate pieces, which I 3D printed and painted, and then I glued in. And then the third model on the right was also 3D printed with my new 3D printer, and it has separate windows and door that were 3D printed and then painted and then glued in to the building. The scaffolding support structure was also 3D printed with as separate pieces, 4 separate pieces, and then glued together. And the base also was a separate piece. And then the stairs were also a separate piece. So it took some time to paint these because they were pretty small and glue it all together. But overall, I think it turned out really well. So here, I'll pick it up and show you. It's all glued together as one piece. Inside the windows, I put packing tape to kind of simulate glass, so you can kind of see a little bit of a reflection in there. It's kind of tricky because on the real building, the window sills are green, and then there's also like a red on the inside of the windowsill. So it's kind of hard to paint that in this. It's so small. But I think overall it turned out really well. And this might not be the final iteration. I may get some green 3D print filament and try to print the windows out with green already being the color. Because right now all of these parts were printed white and then painted with acrylic paint. I think the stairs also turned out pretty well for how small they are. Put that back. And if anybody's interested in seeing the CAD model of this, just put a comment below and I can make a video about how I designed it as well, if people are interested in that. The next model over here is the locomotive engine facility, kind of like where they would work on locomotives. Bring it a little closer so you can see it. So this was also designed and 3D printed on my new 3D printer. The walls were all separate pieces. Basically made it as like a kit, almost like that you would buy, and then I assembled it. I also put packing tape on the inside for windows here. And this is kind of just the first iteration of this building, like this. So I didn't paint it yet or anything. I'll probably try to put like some kind of a brick feature on the walls, but we'll see. And I need to 3D print the door there too. But you can see it has a nice big garage door opening for the locomotives to go inside, and then you can just see through it. There's nothing else there, so I think that looks pretty good. I've also been working on these signal towers, which in Marion there's a few of them located nearby the train station. So these ones were 3D printed as two separate pieces, and the seam is kind of right along this edge. So let me just take this off so I can show you. It's just held down temporarily. But you can kind of see that it was two pieces, and then I super glued them together. And then the little light parts, they were glued on separately as well. So it's not perfect yet, and this is kind of just the first iteration of this. All of the poles are just squares right now, so I need to figure out a better way to make them more rounded. I'm not sure if I try to round the edges where it touches the build plate on the 3D printer, if it would still print right or not. But that's those. Eventually I would like to have actual lights in these, but that's a problem for later. Also, just 3D printed a little telephone pole, kind of as a test to see how it would come out. It came out okay. The back side of it is flat because it was printed laying down on the build plate. The top is rounded. So that's something I could work on. And then back here, where the coal mine loading areas is going to be, I 3D printed this coaling tower. It's actually modeled after one that's in Marion, north of the train station. But the real one is much bigger than this, and it goes over 2 tracks. So I just kind of used it as inspiration, and it's only going over 1 track here. So I may change it, I don't know yet, but I kind of like the way it turned out. It looks pretty cool. You can also see down here, I 3D printed these little bumper stoppers and painted them orange. I've got 1 there, and then I've got 2 here as just like a last resort in case the train is heading off the side of the table. Right around here there's a nylon rail joiners that go up through these 4 rails. So everything past here going that way is not electrically powered. So no locomotive in theory should be able to make it to the end. It could push cars off the end, but hopefully that wouldn't happen. I also started working on the main road here that goes next to the train station. To make this road, I used this lightweight spackling, and I made sure to run my putty knife along the rails on the inside so that the wheel flanges can still go through. So far, I like the way it turned out. It's very, it has the same consistency as the foam, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it to be more like plaster, but I like the way it turned out actually. So I've sanded it down here, and then down there I just did that earlier today, that section that goes over those 4 tracks down there. So that'll all need to be sanded as well and smoothed out. And then I'm going to continue the road here up to the highway. And then once all that's paved, I will paint it a gray color. So the last thing is, of course, you can see that I started ballasting more of the track. So I've got it from the tunnel all the way up here to the diamonds and past by the station a little bit. I also ballasted from these crossover here all the way around through this canyon scene and over there to the other end of that straightaway. So I'll try to finish up the rest of the ballasting here soon. That's my next step. And then after I finish that, I want to finish the roads. And then after that, we'll start doing the ground cover and figure out how to make trees and stuff like that. Along with all of that, I'm going to continue working in Onshape to refine my 3D print models and come up with new buildings to build. There are going to be buildings along this main street, and along the back there's going to be a blue sky backdrop, and I'd like to have some 3D printed buildings that just stick out maybe a few millimeters to just look like they're there, but it's only a piece of them. And then the backdrop itself will have pictures of like a road kind of you know, vanishing out into the horizon, just to make it look bigger than it is. So I think the layout's coming along pretty well. Appreciate everybody watching, and I'll see you in the next one.